Halloween is only a few days away, and like every vanilla gamer out there, I embrace the cliche of celebrating it by playing horror games. So if you're like me and unsure what game to choose to get your scare dose, then here's my top 10 list of horror games you should play in 2020. This will not only feature 2020 games, but older games as well. So enough waiting and let's get into it, starting with number 10. The Evil Within 2. The Evil Within series comes from the same person behind Resident Evil, Shinji Mikami. This is a third-person survival horror that will pull you into a nightmarish world populated by grotesque and frightening enemies. It takes place in a small town, dark supernatural forces, and a lost little girl to spice things up. It also does a great job of mixing classic horror stalking with more modern action elements, and blending open areas along with cramped up small rooms provides good pacing and makes Evil Within 2 a sure thing for fans of the genre. At number 9 is Dying Light. Seeing that Dying Light 2 is, quote, on its last stretch of development according to the devs, it might be a good time to play Dying Light if you haven't already. Story is great, some great characters, and of course, parkour. The most accurate comparison is if Assassin's Creed had zombies, it would be Dying Light. Now the action and the gymnastics do not mean this game does not have its fair share of scares. I'm referring to the volatiles who only come out at night. These guys are faster than you, have more health, and hit like a truck. They are enough to make nighttime scary as hell for you. And that's only one example of dozens of zombie types craving that parkour brain of yours. Dying Light can be a bit long with its DLC, so if you're looking for a shorter experience, take a look at number 8. Resident Evil Biohazard. The return to roots for a legendary horror game series and an attempt to revive it in a new direction, and man did they succeed. RE7 brought back fear into the series. Ever since Resident Evil 4, which was an amazing game by the way, the series transitioned more and more into a pure action shooter zombie game. That actually diluted the sense of fear and panic every fan of the series is familiar with. In comes Biohazard. With its semi-confined levels and unsettling setting, it was the most terrifying experience since Resident Evil 1, with unique elements, exciting puzzles, and attractive atmosphere. It drops us right in the middle of a crazy infected family that's not only out to hunt us, but is also looking to infect us and, quote, adopt us. The more you explore the game, the more mystery is unveiled. Resident Evil 7 is a must-play and is a great revival of a classic series. Speaking of classics, at number 7 is Amnesia Rebirth, a worthy follow-up to a classic survival horror that has been considered for a time to be the scariest horror games ever made. Amnesia Rebirth moves on from the old-school jump scares and instead focuses on a story-based dive into the protagonist's psyche and explores deeper concepts, both figuratively and literally. In 2010, Amnesia: The Dark Descent had players explore the castle while facing down monsters they couldn't fight, and sometimes couldn't even see. In Rebirth, you are thrown into a deep cave in the middle of the Algiers desert. Sure, you're still pursued by a creature and have limited resources just like its predecessors, but this time it's more about advancing the story than simple cheap jump scares. Rebirth is as good or even better than Dark Descent. Staying with genre classics here, at number 7 is an old game that still sends shivers down my spine even after so many years. The Dead Space series. The story, set on an abandoned space vessel, takes horrifying twists and turns, starring zombified aliens jumping at you from every corner. Even though the first game had that vanilla horror theme, the sequels are no pushovers. Dead Space is one of those genre-defining horror games of the modern era, featuring an original story, great graphics for its time, and true horror. It also helped that it was greatly inspired by Ridley Scott's classic Alien. And since we love smooth transitions, here's game number 5 in the list, of course, Alien Isolation. So many games were inspired by the Alien franchise, Ranging from Ripley's courage to the chilling silence of the ship corridors, everything about it whispers fear. Even though there have been numerous Alien games before it, Alien Isolation is the series' most faithful game. You don't need hordes of xenomorphs running at you. You only need one in a terrifying settings, and that does the job. You add to that an impressive atmosphere and you'll find yourself holding your breath quite often. Alien Isolation brings the series' roots back to the gaming scene and it deserves only love. At number 4 is Until Dawn. And you can't be a fan of the horror genre without having a favorite slasher movie. I mean, come on, slasher horrors have been around forever, but we didn't get that many slasher games. In comes Until Dawn. A group of teenagers going on a trip to a remote cabin in the mountains? With an unknown presence stalking them? Sign me up! What makes it great though, is the decision making involved and how it affects other characters, which adds another layer of fear. Being afraid of making mistakes and having your characters pay for it is enough to keep you on edge, in addition to it having, of course, classic horror elements. All of this make it a must-play horror story game. Okay, now we're in the top 3 and this is where I really start to have fun. At number 3 is Resident Evil 2 Remake. And I'm so glad to be saying this, and proud at the same time. 2 Resident Evil titles in a top 10 horror games list. Resident Evil 2 not only defined the zombie genre when it first came out in 1998, but it did it again in 2019. It's so rare to witness a good remake, let alone a remake that's even better than the original game. We're witnessing history here, boys. In Resident Evil 2, the classic action, dense exploration, and puzzle-solving gameplay that defined the Resident Evil series returns. You take the role of Leon Kennedy and Claire Redfield again to fight for survival, but each of their perspectives is different than the other, with different paths and campaigns. The new over-the-shoulder camera sounds bland in theory, but it was really put to good use here, along with much more realistic zombies that tear through you and oh, yeah, this guy. I'm not gonna linger too much on it and I highly recommend it, guys. The runner-up in this list is Metro Redux. And yeah, I know, some of you will probably say that they're technically not pure horror games, but I disagree. The Metro setting alone is enough to chill you to the bone. Not just the post-nuclear war world, but also in the confined and claustrophobic metro tunnels. Let me paint a picture for you. Imagine you're in a tight metro tunnel, all dark with only your helmet's weak and malfunctioning torchlight to light the way. Gas pipes run along the wall and you hear water drops falling like clockwork. In the distance, in the far depths of the tunnel, you sometimes hear mutant howls and other beasts infesting the metro. You have no choice but to keep on going and hope for the best. Now tell me this is not terrifying. Because remember guys, it is not the jump scare that scares you, it's the stress of the wait. Go play the Metro series, and if you do, then please play it on Ranger difficulty, which will force you to play without an ammunition counter and without crosshairs. Thank me later, guys. Finally, and the game you should be scared by this Halloween is, of course, the Outlast series. Outlast 1 and Outlast 2 are now both must-plays in the horror genre. Both games drop you in an insane infested place. The first is set in an asylum for the insane, and the second one takes you to a village in a rural area inhabited by crazy folks. Where some horror games give the player power to shoot and kill the enemies, Outlast does the opposite. You get nothing. Save for a camera to record your own death, either by naked knife-wielding maniacs, a crazy limb-chopping doctor, or the occasional ghost. Outlast 1 and 2 are some of the scariest games out there because they feature the most terrifying monster of all, humans. So that's it for this list, guys. If you want more like it and enjoyed what you saw, please do subscribe to the channel and help it grow. I appreciate all of you for watching to the end, and until next time, take care and stay safe. Peace!